To start with the obvious, the portrait, as I'm sure y'all know, is a graphic image that has been a secret but won't be for much longer. And the process of creating one was really to identify the skills and the attributes that the community of our state felt like students should possess in order to be more well-rounded for life after graduation. So the skills and the attributes that you're going to see today were the ones that were narrowed down by the various stakeholders who are in this room. So in terms of what to expect, I'm going to leave the podium in a split second. The superintendent's going to come up, she's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to have the panelists get up, and we're going to have the panelists go to the table behind me. They're going to introduce themselves so that everybody gets a chance to meet and hear about the very people who were involved in building this portrait from the ground up. They're going to have about a 30-minute Q&A conversation where we'll dive into what the competencies are, why they matter, and why they should be valued in a K-12 space. And from there, we're going to have some nice cookies and coffee at the back. And there's still coffee at the back, so if you didn't get a chance to grab some, feel free to do so. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Truitt.
Well, thank you so much, Blair, and thank you, Blair, for your efforts in making today happen as smoothly as it's going to, which I have no doubt that it will. I am Catherine Truitt. I'm the proud Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of North Carolina, and it is such a pleasure to finally be with you all to reveal really what has been over a year's worth of work. This endeavor really was born out of a conversation that I had with superintendents probably a couple of years ago, which is to say that we talked about the fact that an accountability model really drives everything that a school does. So in other words, what gets measured gets done. We all know that no matter where we work, what industry we work in, whether it's education or some other field. And so we really set about to frame a collective reflection of what skills a student needs to have, no matter what they're going to do when they graduate from high school. And so we're so excited to finally reveal what the 7 competencies are. The 1,200 strong team that Blair mentioned in her remarks are folks from all over the state who came together in design teams, and some of those people are in the room with us today. And they started off talking about 50 different competencies, 50 different skills that they really felt like students should have when they graduate from high school. And they narrowed it down to 7. And those are the 7 that will be revealed in just a little bit. So I'm really excited that we're going to have these skills to complement the academic rigor that our students have in their K-12 experience, because we all know, especially having come out of this pandemic as we have, that there is more to what teachers do and what schools do than just academic rigor. And so I'm looking forward to not just you hearing from me, but also from our incredible group of student and teacher and principal panelists. And with that, I am going to ask them to join me here at the board table. So we are going to start by going around the room, and everyone is going to share their name, where they go to school and where they live, what grade they are in, and what their plans are for after high school. And then our adults will share a little bit about themselves as well. So we're going to start with Micah.
Hello everybody, good morning. My name is Micah Owens. I live in Lexington, North Carolina. I am a senior. I currently go to Lexington City High School, and after college I plan on becoming a computer engineer and going into pre-law.
Excellent, thank you so much for being here. All right, Emerson.
Hi, my name is Emerson Fitch, and I go to Wilson Early College Academy in Wilson County, and I'm currently a senior as well. After high school, I plan on going to college in New York and going into entertainment law and film acting.
Thank you. Marcella.
Hi, I'm Marcella. I'm a senior at Clayton High School in Clayton, And after high school, I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do. I'm hoping to go into journalism somewhere. If that means a four-year university or starting off at JCC, I'm just trying to keep my options open. So.
Thank you. And I should add that Marcella is also the student advisor to the State Board of Education. Okay, Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Santamore. I am the 2022 Burroughs Welcome Fund Sandhills Region Teacher of the Year. I serve as an intervention specialist at East Hope Middle School in Hope County, and I am just so excited about this work and glad to be here today.
Thank you.
So I am Patrick Green, principal at Green Central High School in Snow Hill, North Carolina, and I am the 2022 Wells Fargo, North Carolina Principal of the Year, which has been a tremendous fun thing for me this year. And so this work is paramount to the work that we're doing in ed leadership, so I'm excited to be here.
Cheyenne.
I'm Cheyenne Carlisle. I live in Gates, and I'm a senior at Gates County High School. I plan on going into the military after school, and RTC is, when I finish with school, will hopefully help me with that to be a higher rank already.
Excellent, thank you. Raj.
Hi everyone, my name is Raj. I'm a senior at Green Level High School in Cary, North Carolina, and I'm still exploring my options for when I graduate.
Thank you. And last but not least, Lily.
My name is Lily Seymour. I am in 11th grade. I'm a junior, and I go to Haywood Early College in Western North Carolina, and I hope to get a bachelor's in English, hopefully a concentration in literature, and go on to get a master's in library science. So.
And Lily gets the prize for driving the furthest to be with us today, all the way from the far western part of the state. And I have already introduced myself. I'm Catherine Truitt, former high school teacher and now state superintendent for North Carolina. So I'm really excited that we have an opportunity to spend a minute setting the stage, kind of talking about our why for this work. I can remember years ago seeing other states that had a portrait of a graduate and kind of noticing that North Carolina did not have a portrait of a graduate. And so I've always been interested in this idea that there could be statewide consensus on what skills, dispositions, mindsets, however you want to frame them, that we could come to consensus as a state on what is important for our students, and therefore what is important for our teachers. You know, the world has changed so much in the last 20 years, and really even just since the advent of the smartphone, the world has changed so much. And the rate of change due to technology continues to increase. And with all of those changes have come changes in what the world of work looks like, changes in what skills not just the soft skills that we would expect a new employee to have, but also if you just even think about the military, for example. The military is such a great microcosm of how things have changed. The military is less about physical might now and more about IT. I mean, so much, think about drone technology. We read about that every day in the news. So it's really more about whether or not someone has the ability in math to be good in computer science. It's so much about communication. There are so many skills that go into creating a modern day military, and we really need to make sure that our students are able to participate in workforce as it looks today. The nature of work has changed so much. And you know, we know that only 31% of our seniors in North Carolina are graduating every year and getting any kind of workforce credential by the time they're 24. And that includes a college degree. So again, only a third of our students are getting either a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, a truck driving license, an IT certification that will lead to a wage, life-sustaining job. We also know that when we look, because we did look at this, we looked at job postings in the US, and 7 out of 10 job postings across the country reference the skills that you're going to see unveiled today. And that is very exciting to think about. In fact, these skills are so important that they're not called soft skills anymore. They're called durable skills because they are skills that last someone a lifetime. And just here in North Carolina, 2.1 million job openings right now demand these durable skills. So we know that we are on the right track. We know that this is meaningful. So the data is clear that this work needed to be done. And we also know that teachers face a lot of pressure to prepare kids for a test that occurs on one day over a few hours, and that test largely determines what that school's performance grade is going to be. And I love something that Dr. Green shared with me a couple of weeks ago. He has 54 teachers, and only 6 of them teach a tested subject, which means the vast majority of his teachers do not teach a subject that gets calculated into that school's performance grade. And we know that I know this firsthand from being a turnaround coach, that when I say to teachers, gosh, wouldn't it be great if you could design a lesson where the kids are collaborating and the kids have to do this critical thinking piece? And so frequently the answer is, well, I don't have time for that because I have to get them ready for this test. And elementary school teachers will tell you that they stop teaching new material in April so that they can start preparing kids for end of grade tests. I'll never forget the year that one of my daughters made they were getting the kids ready for end of grade testing, and in order to help the kids deal with the stress of end of grade testing, they had the kids make pillowcases that they could then have on the day of testing to make them feel better about this 3.5-hour test that they were getting ready to take in the 3rd grade. So what can we be doing as the education community writ large to better prepare students for what comes after high school? How can K-12 education evolve to ensure that students have as much opportunity as possible? And how can these skills and competencies be woven into the fabric of their K-12 experience throughout that K-12 experience? So this process that we're going to discuss today really has been about driving alignment. Alignment between our K-12 system of public education, our higher education community, employers, and parents. Because it's very important that parents understand what these changes are. So, as I've said, the design team, some of whom are here today, narrowed down the 50 identified skills and attributes to 7 that they felt would best prepare students for the broadest range of possibilities and opportunities post-high school. Our hope is that schools will embrace this portrait and that schools and teachers will emphasize these competencies in their day-to-day work. So I'm so excited to ask for Micah and Lily, who were our 2 students involved in the design team process, to step forward and unveil the 7 competencies. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So you can see that they are adaptability, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, empathy, learner's mindset, and personal responsibility. So we are going to go around the table and have a discussion specific to these competencies. And Cheyenne, we're going to start with you. So I believe that you are going to speak with us about adaptability.
So adaptability, I believe, is where you have to learn to adjust to your environment, or like if say you're going to like a party or something with your friends and you don't know what to do, so you have to adjust with the people around you. Or if you're in the military, you have to adjust to a situation, say your comrades are in danger and you have to figure out how to get them out of it. And then during COVID, you had to adjust, a lot of kids had to adjust to learning through the internet. I personally was not good at it. I started failing because of COVID. And so I think that adaptability is really important because it's needed to get through.
Absolutely. I mean, we could spend all day just talking about different instances where young people have had to adapt throughout the past few years, and how challenging that has been, for sure. Thank you so much. Okay, Raj, I believe you have collaboration.
Sure. I have collaboration. I'm going to use an example from music. So I play in orchestras. I play the trumpet, and trumpets are really loud. So a lot of times it's really easy for me to outplay an entire section, and I have to make sure I don't do that. So to me, collaboration means to step back sometimes and recognize my own weaknesses so I can let other people do what they're good at.
Oh, that's excellent. And that's actually, when you're describing that, that to me is a metaphor for being on a team in the workplace. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure my colleagues and I could have that exact conversation about what we're doing when we collaborate together in the workplace. Thank you very much. Emerson, you have communication.
Yes. So I have communication, and I think communication is pretty straightforward. I see it as being able to express your thoughts clearly, whether it's verbally, written, or non-verbally. It's being able to ask questions and resolve conflict. And I think a great example of communication, in my English class, we participate in a lot of class-wide discussions. So it's being able to just express your thoughts clearly and be able to give your opinions to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well put. Thank you so much. Marcella, you have critical thinking.
Yes. So I think critical thinking is extremely important just in every way, shape, and form of life, because especially, I mean, just in many formats in school, because a lot of times, like Superintendent Truitt spoke, we're really just prepared for a test, and I think critical thinking is everything besides that test, is being able to embrace everything that you're learning and actually learn it and not just memorize it, take that test, and then forget about it. It's more actually taking everything in and being able to think outside the box to resolve problems and retain information and be able to understand it and be able to speak about it and move forward with that information instead of just, you know, that day you got it on a PowerPoint and then the next day you forget about it. I think critical thinking is more being able to solve solutions so that you can understand it, not just so that someone else is like, yeah, you're right.
Wow, that's very powerful. what I was thinking when you were talking was that adage of you don't really understand something until you can teach it to somebody else. And I know that when I was a high school teacher, that definitely was not the standard that I was aiming for with my students. It was definitely more about that test. So yeah, thank you. Okay, Lily, you have empathy.
I do, yes, empathy. I chose empathy because it's about people. And people are very important, and we have to interact with them on all levels, whether we like to or not. And being able to work with people with a level of understanding and compassion and forgiveness, I think is very important that students need to have for their entire lives.
Yeah, that is so true. Everyone brings their own experiences to the table, and to be able to have that mindset of walking in another person's shoes is really just something that I wish we could expect from everyone, right? Yeah, very well said, thank you. And then Micah, you have learner's mindset.
Yes, I chose learner's mindset mainly because I believe it's like one of the most important things that we can implement to our students, mainly because it's really taking the knowledge that we learn and taking it outside of the classroom. So the way I really like to think of this is the Bloom's taxonomy scale, where instead of just allowing our students in order just to remember and understand the information, really take it to the next level and allow them to actually get them to the create point, to where that they can actually take it outside the classroom and apply it to different things and want to learn more and teach it to others.
Yeah, that is so well said. I often think that we don't encourage our teachers to teach kids how to learn. And that is what you just said encapsulates the learner's mindset. You have to be able to apply, go up in Bloom's taxonomy, like you said. I mean, that's an excellent way to think about learner's mindset is through that taxonomy. And then I'm last. I have personal responsibility. And as I was looking at the descriptors for personal responsibility, it occurred to me that things like earning trust and respect through honest, principled behaviors, honoring your commitments, taking ownership of decisions, those were all things that are leadership qualities. These are all things that are what we want in our own people leaders, in our own bosses. And it caused me to reflect. I've had lots of bosses in my life. Some of them have been principals. Some of them have been more traditional types of bosses. But I certainly hope that my team at the department would describe me as someone who values personal responsibility, and that my actions demonstrate that to the largest extent possible. I think that that persevering through challenges is something that is so much easier said than done, and something that if any of us are parents, that we would certainly hope our children are able to do. And that is also a lens through which I see all of these things is through that parent lens. And these are things that I would hope that my own children have when they graduate from high school. Okay, so thank you all for sharing the specifics of the portrait with the room. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper now with some questions and answers. So I know, in fact, Micah's mother is a middle school teacher, Mrs. Owens, and we were talking beforehand, and she was describing to me how she embeds these in her lessons. And we've got lots of teachers across the state who are doing this and who are really working as hard as they can to, again, weave these competencies into their day-to-day work. So I know that they exist, but now with the portrait, we have a very intentional way that these can be incorporated in our day-to-day work. And so I'm going to start with Dr. Miller. Dr. Green. His former boss was Dr. Miller. Same first name. It's an inside. Yeah, he's Patrick Green from Greene County, which is extra confusing. So from a principal's perspective, what would be an appropriate way to bring this to life inside a school building?
Well, I think, talking about Micah's mom, she's hit the nail right on the head. She's weaving it into things. This is not a thing that you teach. It is in all things that you teach and do. So it's woven into curriculum, it's woven into your academic language, but I think more importantly, it's modeled by all people within the building as an exemplar, not just during a lesson, but in how you interact with people between lessons. So I think as an opportunity for students and for teachers and leaders in buildings to point out when people have moments where they're using these skills and they do a good job, or when they're interacting with a moment where they have to use this skill and they don't know what to do, to think through those times and to talk through them and prepare themselves for them so they know what to do in life when there's not that coachable moment there.
Oh, I love that they model them. That's excellent, because like you said, they're not separate from.
Sure.
They are part of. Yeah, thank you for that. Elizabeth.
Hi.
So you are our teacher representative today. From your perspective, how do you incorporate these 7 mindsets and competencies into your daily work?
I think that when I looked through, well, during this process, obviously, we had the list of 50, and it was a debate of what needed to be the ones that we held on to. And I think that a lot of these are basically umbrella skills. And so if a student can collaborate, that fulfills many other areas. And as a teacher, I saw these things naturally happening in my classroom, but I never really paid attention to the fact that just like students come with different varying levels of math skills and literacy skills, they come with different levels of empathy, different levels of communication skills. And if we're talking about it and planning for it, then we can build these skills instead of making the assumption that they walk into the room having it. And so I want this to be part of the conversation as educators. When we sit down to plan a lesson, we're also talking about, okay, the expectation is they collaborate, but how are we going to make sure they can do it? The expectation is that they communicate with one another, but how are we going to teach that first and make sure that it happens to the best of their ability so that starting in first grade, they're able to do that. Personal responsibility can be as simple as, remember to bring your lunchbox to lunch, and then when you forget it, okay, a reminder of what it takes to be responsible for yourself and what you're doing. So this is just everything I could ever hope for, honestly, because I've been doing it, but I want everyone to be doing it.
You've said something that I'm embarrassed to say never occurred to me, and that is that, okay, yes, you're doing these things, right? You might be able to, it might even be that the lessons that you're planning very naturally bring these in. But what you've brought up is the idea that there has to be recognition that some students might not have had a teacher the year before who had collaborative lessons, or lessons that involved communication, for example. And maybe even if you think about a class like math, where communication might not necessarily be prioritized, how can we prioritize communicating in math? What does that even look like? And so you're acknowledging something very important, and that is that just like all students are at a different level in their reading or in their ability to solve equations with more than one variable, they also are going to be have different levels of having attained these in their journey to attaining these goals. That's incredible. Yeah, thank you for that. So I want to turn to our students now. When you think about your experience, when you think about your dream job, and some of you have alluded to a little bit to what that's going to be, but even if you don't know what field you want to work in, when you think about what would make you happy about going to work every day, and you think about that dream job, which competency seems most relevant to you when you think about that? And so Cheyenne, we'll start with you.
Well, since I plan on going into the military, I think that adaptability and communication are like the key ones, because again, adaptability, you have to be able to adapt to your environment. And communication, you have to be able to talk to your sergeants or whatever branch you're in, and you have to be able to understand what each other is saying so that you make sure you go out with your orders the correct way.
Yes, absolutely, because that's the kind of job where you follow orders or there are consequences, right? And safe consequences with safety, with lives even. So yeah, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Lily, what about you?
I think, well, my dream job is to work in a university library setting. And I think learner's mindset is one of the biggest competencies in that job, because in my head, like being little, a librarian was like in a room full of books and it was like quiet, But now it's changing more and more to digital platforms, and being a librarian is really just like data management and being able to organize information. So I think having a learner's mindset, coming in excited to learn new processes, work with new people, and I think that will be very important going into the future.
100%. And actually, I went to Parents Weekend for my daughter who's in college over the weekend, and she showed me the library, and it's not at all what I remember a college library looking like. And so it sounds to me like university librarians have had to be very adaptable over the past few years, because they're full of maker spaces now and all kinds of new things. So they don't look like they did when we all went to school. So yeah, thank you for that. Emerson, what about you?
I would also have to say adaptability. When I think about law, you have to adapt to being in different physical settings and also working with different clients. Everybody's different, and also just having to be able to adapt to, going against opposing parties. That happens pretty much every day for lawyers. And for acting, you shoot footage in different studios, in different settings around the world, and you constantly have to work with different people, and there might be some difficult people, but you just to be able to adapt and put on a good face and just, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is very true. I remember the first job I ever had in high school, my manager was 19. So it was a little challenging, but you have to adapt to those settings and learn to get along with everyone, absolutely. Micah, how about you?
For me, computer engineering and both being a lawyer, actually said I really agree with the adaptability part. I'm always going to get like a new client. I never know what's next. That's like in both fields. I never know what I'm going to have to be design next or engineering next. But I also don't know what client, if it's law, I don't know what client I'm going to get, how I'm going to defend them, all the things I'm going to have to go through with that. But I think another important thing is personal responsibility. I have to hold myself accountable for the client. The client's future is practically in my hand. Whether it be what I'm designing for them or how I'm defending them. So I think having personal responsibility to get up and to best represent my client the best way I can, I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, excellent. Very, very well said. Marcella.
I'm gonna have to also say learner's mindset. I think in your life, from the moment you're born to the very end, you're always learning something new. You're never at a moment in your life where you know all, and all information you've had to learn is like in your brain. Life is about learning and trying new things, and I think that in any career field, it's important to keep your options open and keep your mindset open and be involved with trying new things and being open to learning, because if you're closed off to that, all of these other competencies basically go out of the window. You have to be able to collaborate with other people that are going to teach you new things. You have to be able to adapt to learning something that you might not have learned before. Empathize with someone who's gone through something different and learn about their story. It goes with everything, and I think that no matter what career field I go into, obviously I'm looking into journalism, but anything, I think that learning is going to be a step in any career that I would choose.
Yeah, it's incredible to hear young people such as yourselves talking about these very big ideas, and I'm sure that the adults and the parents in the room are experiencing the same level of emotion that I am. It's just incredible to hear this. And so, Raj, we'd like to hear from you now.
Sure. I'm also going to say adaptability. As someone, I really don't know what I want to do when I grow up, so it's going to be really helpful that I know how to adapt to a different setting if I decide maybe when I'm 30, like I hate my job, I want to quit, and I, decide to switch to law or something. It's going to be really, that'll be tough, so I would need to adapt well.
Yeah, and you're smart to say that, because we know that even before the pandemic, the average person in the United States was staying in the same field for 5 years and then going and doing something else. The days of someone staying at the same company for 20, 30 years are gone. That's what we mean when we talk about the nature of work having changed. So what about, let's shift gears for a minute and talk about high school in general. So remembering that the adults in your building are having to, despite what my 8th grader thinks, they're not trying to make school unpleasant. They want for school to be meaningful and relevant for you. But when you think about these 7 competencies and how they show up or not in your current high school experience, what would you say to people who are in charge of deciding whether or not these get taught in any sort of meaningful way in your classroom? How do these show up or not in your current high school experience? Anyone?
I can start.
Yeah.
I would say, so I go to an early college where you're taking both high school and college courses at the same time. And one competency that sticks out for me is communication, and like self-advocacy, being able to not have someone hold your hand all the way through and check in on you. And if you have a problem, you have the skills to be able to either set up a meeting during office hours or send an email to help resolve whatever conflict you're experiencing. So communication would be most relevant to my school right now.
I love what you said about that advocating for yourself. That is very, very important skill to have before you go off to college or to the military or to employment someplace. Being able to articulate what you need, what you want to be successful, or to have your needs met, or to even if it means asking questions, like you said, that's very, very, very good. What else? Marcella?
I can go next. I think for me personally and how I see my learning experience, I think empathy is something that is often taken for granted. And I just think that emotions are often just like swept under the rug in school because it's more like everything's learning based. But I think that empathy is incredibly important. I mean, not even just teachers having empathy for their students, but students also having empathy for their teachers, and everyone just having empathy for each other and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And teachers have a stressful life and they have a lot to deal with, but so do students. I mean, growing up is hard as much as people like to say that it's not. I mean, it is, and I think that learning is hard, getting an education is hard, as well as teaching it. And I think that the best way to learn is being able to just be understanding and not always be on edge and wanting to fight or argue or be right. And I think that having empathy and being able to just be in a room with other people and be kind to each other, and it's very hard to learn or teach in a room that someone's always fighting or it's not calm. Like, empathy is something that you need to be in a classroom and for everyone to be learning and not be on edge.
Wow, that's very powerful, very powerful. And so for you, it sounds like your recommendation would be that mutual respect and empathy be established early and often in classrooms. Yeah, very good. What about you, Emerson?
I'd probably say that collaboration is the most evident in my school right now. We do some independent work, but we do a lot of group projects, and I actually just finished a group project in my English class, and we had a bunch of different options, but my group decided to do a film adaptation of the book 1984, and I was in a group with my friends, but when it comes to a school project, like, it's a whole different story. Like, you're students, I mean, you're classmates, you're not just friends, you know? So, I think collaboration is very important because we had to make sure that we distributed the power to everybody in the group, because I think it's really important to make sure that everybody's contributing and that you are able to work with people, because, you know, we got to pick our group, but you don't always get to pick who you work with. And so making sure that not just one person is doing all the work, you have to make sure everybody has a leadership position and that you can work together to create something really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like I would love to see the final product. What about you?
I think Emerson basically summed up for collaboration, but I also think communication is key, especially in my school, because with one of my favorite classes, RTC, we definitely have to communicate, because we have to, so when we are doing drill or something, we have to make sure we are loud enough and we understand the commands that they're saying, so that we are all in step or doing it all together. So.
Excellent. So again, communication, crucial. Yeah. What about you, Raj? What do you see in your school setting or
Sure.
not see?
I think it's important to foster a learning mindset in schools. School is, you know, the best place to fail in your life. If you fail at your job, that's, you know, objectively worse than failing in school. So it's important that we know how to fail and how to overcome our shortcomings, so we can use that later in our life. Yeah.
Do you think that we have a culture in our school system where it's okay to fail?
Not really. I think it would be better. I think it would be a good thing to get that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot has been written for businesses about the power of failure, and how, you know, that's how you get new ideas, right? Is you fail, you pick yourself up and you move on. And I don't know that that certainly when I was a teacher, I didn't feel like it was okay to do that. Patrick, can you talk a little bit about that, the culture of failure and how that might play into learners' mindset?
Sure. I mean, I think a good teacher is going to take an opportunity for a child who's not met the goal yet and say, hey, this is why you haven't done this, but let's keep working on it. Let's again persevere. Let's have that learner's mindset. And as we continue to work on it, we gain a lot of knowledge along the way. We gain new skills, new dispositions that are going to continue to grow in the next problem that you encounter, the next thing that you may fail at in life, because you're going to fail at a next thing at some point, and now you know what to do.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And back to what Lily was saying, when you have student agency and when you are able to pick yourself up after you've not been think about what would happen if students just stopped coming to school or gave up, which does happen sometimes, where some kids are able to kind of learn from a failure and then go on. They're able to get the help that they need, and others maybe not so much. So, Elizabeth, how might these 7 competencies, or maybe choose one in particular, how might you prioritize these in your classroom?
So obviously when the list came out, I was thinking about which ones are just naturally easy to integrate, and obviously like communication is such a smooth way you teach kids how to communicate. I really was focusing on critical thinking because I think that's a very challenging skill to teach. Like, how do you teach someone to think critically? But like Dr. Green said, modeling. You model your thought processes. And as teachers, when we model how to solve something, we're showing how our brain is working, and it teaches kids to grow their brains in the same way. And providing those opportunities where we're not just asking critical thinking questions, but we're allowing them to question and allowing them to help us dig deeper in what we're learning. And so as natural as some of them feel, other ones are not going to be as natural in a classroom. And so making sure that we're mindful of collaborating with colleagues to ensure that if you're really great at critical thinking in your classroom and I'm not as great, but I make the best collaborative projects, then I can support you on that. So I really hope that as teachers come together on this, we're leaning on each other to make sure that we're building off of each other's skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to share a little anecdote with our students, and I'm going to ask you to, when I'm finished with this true anecdote, to tell me which of the 7 competencies you think factor into this story. So this is a true story. I was talking to a friend yesterday who is with a startup, right? And a startup is a very, that's a new company. It's not well established yet, right? It's typically doing something that's very innovative. And the CEO of the startup had hired a 24-year-old to be part of the team, and she assigned her a project to complete in a week's time. And when she turned in the project, it was not what the CEO had asked for. And a week had gone by. She had not reached out to ask any questions, so she assumed everything was okay. And so when she said to the 24-year-old new employee, well, this really wasn't what I asked for. Did you not really understand what I asked you to do? And her response was, well, this really is not in my job description. And so that young woman is no longer with the company. So if that young woman had maybe spent her entire K-12 career having had these 7 competencies embedded, which of these 7 competencies do you think speaks to perhaps where that young woman went astray? Marcella?
I think that probably either communication or learner's mindset, just because, if she knew from the beginning that it wasn't in her job description, then she could have communicated that or asked for help. Also with learner's mindset, if she really did want the job and wanted to try, she could have given it a go and communicated with other employees or with her new boss and seen what else she could do, what help she could receive in order for her to do a better job at the project she was assigned.
Yeah, very well said. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I think that's an example of personal responsibility.
Ah.
Even if at the end of the week she showed up with this project and her boss is like, well, this is not what I wanted, having the skill to be like, well, okay, so what can I do to change it to make it how you want? And I understand that I didn't do it the exact way that you wanted. So being able to take responsibility for what you did and sort of pivot, I think would have helped change, her not losing her job.
You're hired. No, very, very good. Anybody else? You both hit the nail on the head, in my opinion. I think that's employers want people who can advocate for themselves and ask questions. They can communicate respectfully. They can learn how to learn and understand how to get that, how to find information that they don't know, and can take responsibility for when they mess up, right? That's a hard thing to do, is to say, oh, I did this wrong, and now I'm going to make it right, and help me figure out how to make this right. Okay, so last question before we wrap up. If these competencies have been intentionally woven into your day, kindergarten through 12th grade, or even just, even if you just want to think about it in terms of high school, how would your school experience have been different?
I guess I can start.
Yeah.
I think my school experience would have been different in a really good way. I think even like just during COVID when we had to do school online, a lot of my age group I know lost their social skills. Like they just figured, oh, we can just hide behind a screen. We don't actually have to talk to anybody. You can send a text or an email, but you can't actually verbally talk to the person. And so now that we're back in school, a lot of people struggle with discussion because they don't have the confidence to speak up and communicate with people. And so I think if communication was stressed a little more, I think we would just be able to express our thoughts more clearly than we are. And also, I think a learner's mindset is also something that school systems lack. And I think a good example is over the summer I went to the North Carolina Governor's School, and I went for the theater discipline. So obviously I had my theater classes, but then we had philosophy class, ethics class, and in all of our classes we didn't have any testing at all. And so I noticed that because there was a lack of testing, I actually retained all of the information because we had interesting discussions, interesting projects, and I didn't have to worry about getting a good grade because I know that in the past, like, I've been so worried about getting a good grade that I would just take in all the information for the time being, and then once the test was done, drop it, let it go, and move on to the next thing. And I think that over the summer, I actually adopted more of a learner's mindset, and I think schools are kind of lacking that because I just think kids aren't really motivated to learn. And so I think if we kind of changed our teaching efforts, maybe kids would actually be more willing to learn and have that mindset.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to jump to Raj because Raj, you also participated in Governor's School 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. How would your experience in your public high school have been different, do you think?
Sure. I have the example of AP classes in second semester. So AP tests are administered in early May, but that leaves like a whole month of school after that. And I noticed like a really stark contrast between before we take the AP test in AP class, we're really trying to like study for the test and the teachers are teaching to the test. But after we take the AP test, we have a lot of fun and we do coursework that's actually a lot more relevant to understanding the content of the course rather than just trying to, get that 5 on the test. So.
Wow. Again, another testing example. It's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Lily, what about you? How would your K-12 experience have been different possibly?
I definitely think my K-8 experience would be very different. Haywood County is a relatively small school system, and especially in middle school, teachers were, again, teaching for the test. And once you learn the material for the test, like, you were fine. And being a good student, if you performed well, they didn't look at you again. Like, it's only they paid attention if you were struggling. So I think teachers taking in these competencies will help teachers see all students and focus on everyone. But to hype up Haywood Early College, I love my high school, and I cannot think of anything different that my high school would do to use these competencies, because I think they have already done a great job doing all of these.
Yeah, the early college high school model is just a perfect example of these competencies at work. I do agree with you. I'm so glad that you had that experience in Haywood County. Micah.
Yeah, I think all these competencies are great, but I think really one key point that we need to stress here is that these competencies not only need to be in the classroom, but before students enter the classroom. So, I mean, roughly about 1/3 of our day is spent at school, like 7 to 8 hours. So I think from K to 12, we're really most impressionable as students. So if we see and model our teachers, doing these outside of, not just teaching them to us, but like truly collaborating with other teachers, maybe the power goes out. We can view them adapt to how they're going to teach, not just like getting stuck. Showing a critical mindset or anything like that. I think we're most impressionable when we're teenagers or kids or something else is what I'm saying. But I think if these are in everyday life, then students are more likely to follow them by the model instead of just being taught in the classroom.
Yeah, and they could be in everyday life in when you participate in sports or debate or theater or band or an apprenticeship or an internship at your school. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that these could be encapsulated, not just in your academic classes. Very good point. Thank you. Marcella?
I think that these competencies being woven into the school setting would benefit not just students but teachers as well. And I think that going along with AP classes, I mean with AP Physics, after we took the test, again, we did like 3 labs in 1 week, and we were building things and seeing how we could learn from that. And I think I learned more in that week of school where I wasn't even giving my full effort because I had already taken the test. So I was just relaxed as ever, and I still learned more there than I think I did in the entire semester of taking that class. And I think these competencies being enrolled into our classrooms, I think it's going to be more of a hands-on learning, and it's going to be learning because I think right now we're memorizing, we're stressing, we're taking tests, we're writing. I don't know how much learning we are doing that's going to benefit us in the future. And I think with these competencies, we will be learning, and we'll be communicating, and we'll be thinking critically, and we'll be learning and adapting and collaborating, and having all of these in our classroom is what's going to set us up for our future as students and even as teachers with future classrooms.
Very well said, very eloquent, thank you. So I'm going to give the final word to our adult educators in the room. So let's start with you, Elizabeth. How would your teaching experience have been different in your, maybe in your early career even, because I know you're not a new teacher, might be different if you knew that you were going to be held accountable for these. Not just that it's okay, right? It's okay if you do this, but no, Ms. Seymour, we're going to hold you accountable. We would like for you to be able to show your school leadership how you are integrating these into your day.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just listening to these students talk about the pressure of testing, that same pressure applies to teachers. And I think that knowing that, yes, that's part of it, but you're going to also be looking at how we are preparing students for the world and how we are including these competencies will make it, like you said earlier during your introduction, that what we're assessed on is what we, essentially what we do. And this needs to be what we do. So if we are held accountable for showing that this is part of our planning process, this is part of our classroom practices, then we're going to see growth in students that we haven't seen before. We're going to prepare them for the world in a way that we haven't before. And I'm a firm believer academics are a wonderful and incredible thing, but we're creating people for the world. And if we are not sending people out of North Carolina schools ready to communicate and think critically and take personal responsibility, then we're not really educating them fully. So just knowing that I want to be held responsible for all of these things. I want my principal to walk through a room and go, hey, you had an awesome lesson today, but I saw your students collaborating in a way that I've never seen before. Mm-hmm. That will make me feel successful, as opposed to, wow, those test-taking strategies were really great today. Your kids are going to be able to eliminate the wrong answer when they read the question. Way to go. So I think that it's just, the more we talk about these things, the more that you all share transparent experiences, because, you broke my heart today talking about some of them, but we need to hear these things from you guys. We need to know what we need to adjust as a public school system, okay? So I love what you all shared. I really did.
Yeah, and I bet your physics teacher was so happy that week of labs.
Oh yeah, my physics teacher, that's what he's all about. We weren't really stressed as much in that class to study for a test. I mean, he was all about labs. He was all about actually learning the curriculum. And I mean, yeah, of course we took notes and he was preparing us for the test, but I really do appreciate that that class was really about learning, and it didn't matter, you know, what you got on your test, if you did greatly or poorly. It was really just, he just wanted to see that light bulb go off in your head about like just anything that you could retain about physics. So
Excellent. All right, Dr. Green, how would your experience day to day as a school leader with 56 teachers and how many students do you have?
Just under 800.
Okay, so and with your 800 students, how would things be different?
So I think, much like Lily was saying, some of these things have existed in innovative learning environments like early colleges or STEM academies. We've had a STEM academy for over 10 years, and we've practiced a lot of these things. But listening to each of them talk today, these should not be innovative practices. These should be regular practices that exist every day in every classroom, K-12. Because ultimately, no one's ever going to ask you what you scored on an AP exam. They are going to expect you to use that knowledge and use your knowledge of working with other people in life to be a successful adult and to make money at a job and be successful and continue to grow and be a great citizen. So as school leaders, we need to start giving that feedback to teachers about these things that we're seeing in their classrooms. We need to have these intentional conversations about them growing as a teacher and growing their learners in these different places. So that's going to be on us to value these 7 things just as much as we value a test score and the content that teachers deliver.
Yeah, I could not say it better than that. That is, you can see why he is the principal of the year and Elizabeth is one of our teachers of the year. That's just incredible. Well, we're running just a little bit long. I want to first of all thank our incredible students for coming here today, especially to Mike and Lily for participating in the design process. Let's give them a round of applause. It sounds cliche, but I'm going to sleep a lot better knowing that our future is in the palm of your hands. You all are stellar, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you so much for being here. And also, it takes just as much bravery for our adults to come and be critical of the system that they work in, that we all work in and that we're students in. So let's give our wonderful adults So if you are looking to learn more about this, you can go to our landing page, which is dpi.nc.gov, and there's an image that will take you to the new Portrait of a Graduate. There's also some incredible resources for districts and school leaders and folks in the community. We've got social media images, an FAQ and more, and all of this is in Spanish as well. And so just to wrap up, thank you to our panelists, thank you to the design team. I want to give a special shout out to my partner in crime in this endeavor, someone who really has led the design team work in a way that exceeded my wildest expectations, and that is my advisor on all things workforce engagement, Mrs. Christy Van Auken. Can you stand Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for caring about this work, and thank you for allowing your children to participate in this work. Mrs. Owens, thank you for being part of the design team as well. We look forward to future conversations, and I hope that you will stay, have some more coffee, and some treats in the back. Thank you all.